Get fast, reliable internet for any budget. Now, qualifying customers can get Xfinity Internet free through the Affordable Connectivity Program. That's right, free high-speed internet from Xfinity. And Internet Essentials customers can get equipment included at no extra cost. Get started today.
Moms and dads, listen. You're not the problem, but you are part of the solution. And this podcast is here to help you reach with your troubled child. Known as the Teen Whisperer, Jason Clopton counsels young adults and has a proven track record of reaching kids when parents can't. Listen and take notes. This show will help you figure out what's bugging your baby and build a bridge to a better relationship with your kids.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Teen Whisperer podcast. I am marriage family therapist Lambers Fisher, your temporary host, filling in for the original Teen Whisperer, Jason Clopton. And I want to follow up on a conversation we had in our last session. If you haven't listened to it, feel free to go back and listen. It was a good conversation. The highlight of that conversation was the idea, embracing the idea that defiance, as we all know in adolescence and the teenage years, which is common, defiance isn't always the disrespectful experience, disrespectful intention that it may seem. There's a lot of times there's a legitimately developmentally appropriate motivation to it. There's the testing of the boundaries. You can't figure out how to stay in the limits until you realize what the limits are, and you need to test those limits, sometimes behaviorally, sometimes verbally, sometimes with a healthy attitude, sometimes not. But sometimes there's a developmentally appropriate testing of the boundaries, and we need to be able to receive those in a healthy way. So with that being a gist, I elaborated a little bit more on it last time. I want to follow up based on some good feedback that I received from a few people that says, hey, that's a good idea, but how do I put that into practice? More specifically, when I have what looks like disrespect, what looks like defiance in front of my face. I love my kid, Lambert. I appreciate that. But when he or she looks at me and or with that face, that is not the face you're supposed to be looking at your parent with a certain volume, with a certain tone, what am I supposed to do then when I'm trying to think of it as not as defiant as you may say? So I want to offer a tip or two on that. And particularly, the first thing that we can do is just remind ourselves what we were talking about before. Not everything is as it seems. As it relates to defiance, sometimes it can be anger related, ungrateful to the parenting, sure. But there's often other feelings associated with it. So if we just broaden our perspective of the various feelings that come into play that may look one way, but be motivated by different things, then it may help us soften our quick response. For example, sometimes things that are anger related or disrespect related are really fear-based things. Somebody is asking them to do something. You may be asking them to do something. They may feel pressure to do something that they are afraid to do. They may be able to do it, but they may be afraid, especially in these pandemic times. Hey, go out to this place, do this. It's like, I'm afraid to go out. It's like, aren't you listening to me? Boy, girl, don't you hear what I'm telling you to do? Do what I say. It's like, but I'm afraid it may come out in a way that's not quite directly saying I'm afraid. It may come out like, no, I don't want to. Why do I have to? But it's really fear motivated. What if it's frustration motivated? I'm frustrated by not accomplishing a certain task. I'm frustrated by my past failures or just not reaching a certain goal or other people's behaviors. Maybe it's disappointment related. Something didn't go the way I seemed, even outside of my control. Between fear, frustration, disappointment, there could be a lot of things, or even anger at somebody else that may be directed at you. And you have to try to put yourselves in their shoes as much as possible, which will probably be a conversation for a different day about the true depths of empathy. But to be able to consider, at the very least, it may not be what it seems. So if you view it that way, then it can be a little bit easier to keep a initial reaction, a compulsive reaction of checking somebody to their face and be like, you need to watch who you're talking to. That may be necessary at times. But if it's always our first response, then we may miss an opportunity to reassure those feelings, to validate those feelings when that's what's necessary. So first, we need to remind ourselves it may not be what it seems. After that, then the fun part begins, because there's a challenge you have to listen and to correct. But the real parental skill, the practice comes in knowing what to do when. Here's a little tip from me to you. Listening usually needs to come first, then the correction. Sometimes in the same vicinity, in the same time frame, oftentimes it is most beneficial for them to be in separate conversations altogether. Let's focus on the listening part first. You can listen in a way that's not just listening to the words, not just hearing the words and then getting into what you need to do instead differently. but listen and give the other person the experience, in this case, the teenager, the adolescent, the experience of feeling heard. How? You often already know how to do this, whether it be in a professional context or with other adults. There's power in the simple phrase, so what I hear you saying is. And I know it sounds really similar to the common phrase, see what happened was. No, but it's a slight variation, it's a nuance. So what I hear you saying is, if you can remember that, then it's a reminder to yourself, wait a minute, I hear the words. What feelings am I hearing underneath that? And if you reflect those feelings, if you give back those feelings, you're saying a whole lot of angry stuff. But what I hear you saying is you're afraid of what might happen if. You're frustrated by being asked to do something when you intended to do something else. You're frustrated. So what I hear you saying is this. And if they respond back by saying, yeah, obviously, then you guessed right. Your benefit of the doubt wasn't in vain. Now they could also look back and say, no, I'm saying you don't know what you're talking about. What makes you think you have the right to tell me anything? Well, then you skip forward to correction. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. You skip straight to the correction piece. But when it isn't that, then it's best for you to listen. Forgive them the experience of feeling heard, in part for a healthy conversation, and in part because it helps you feel heard and get heard. It helps pave the way for receptivity when you do get to the correction part. You want to be heard when you tell them this is how you do things differently. Give them the sense of feeling heard. It's like, I hear your feelings, but we need to do things differently. And that gets into the second part. The first part is listen in a way that helps them cope and process their feelings better. If you help them feel validated and heard, then whatever is fueling that unhealthy expression of feeling, it is subsided a little bit because now somebody's hearing them. You may not have changed anything, but someone's hearing their feelings and validating it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be disappointed. And if they have that moment, and some time has gone by, then they can embrace that and then process through, then cope. Then another time, whether it be 5 minutes later, an hour later, but it has to be distinct in conversation. That was one conversation. This is another conversation. Because then you can go back and say, now, let's follow up on that conversation we had earlier. It's like, yeah, that one where I expressed things. I know it was an unhealthy way, but you heard me. Yeah, what about that? Now, I heard that you were feeling this, and I appreciate that you told me that. Next time, though, I'm gonna need you to keep that volume a little bit down to help me help you. I'm gonna need you to watch that tone a little bit to help me help you. I'm gonna need you to watch that language a little bit to help me help you. This helps you. If it's a separate conversation, it helps you distinguish between the correction of the expression, how it's done versus what is said. If you merge them together, if you merge the listening and the correction, then it runs the risk of it seeming like only the good feelings can be expressed. You're correcting my feelings. You're saying I can only express my feelings if I say it the right way. Otherwise, it won't be accepted. I hear you, but I hear what you're saying, but okay, I hear you might have a point, but you better watch how you're talking to me. There is a time for that. There's a time for you need to watch your language. I am still the adult, but if it comes after a foundation has been laid with I hear you, your feelings matter, then they're more receptive to what you have to say next. And you actually get a chance to decrease the likelihood that that happens in the same way. Ever? Sure, feelings happen like that, but you get to help them learn and they get to help respond in a different way. I always pull back to my hard-headed years, and this started way before teenage years, but especially my teenage years, where I was very much that why kid, why this, why this, why this, why that, and very inquisitive. That's the positive version of that. And my mother said to me something that she said frequently, clearly, and it was a long while before I really understood. She'd say, in the moment, boy, you need to learn when to keep your mouth shut. Now, here's the thing. Instantaneously, I was compelled. Not a half second went by before I opened my mouth again and said, you know what? I was wondering about that because I always get these responses and people seem to be frustrated by it and wah, 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 wah. What I didn't get was you need to learn when to keep your mouth shut was code for right now is when you need to keep your mouth shut. And eventually I learned, or else I wouldn't be a productive adult today. But the challenge is when we correct, be open to doing that extra piece and to conveying when and how. I need you to work on that volume, not just do it. Here's how. Matter of fact, this is also where we go into modeling how. I'm going to show you how. The next time I get angry and I say, take a deep breath, and then I say, you need to understand this. I'm modeling for you Volume matters. I'm modeling for you. Language matters. Yes, what I am going to say still needs to be heard, and your feelings matter too. But we can teach, we can model. If we balance teaching and modeling, if we balance listening and correcting, then we can have something that lasts moving forward. We can actually decrease the likelihood of repeated occurrences. Even if they have something unhealthy to express, they can say, I know. I got to say it a little bit quieter, but I need you to understand this. And even if it's not perfect, you can say, oh, they get it. You can say you can see that they're modifying things because of what you taught them the last time. And that can pave the way moving forward for some very healthy conversations. You have no clue what's going to come next, but it'll be on a safer environment. It'll be in a relationship with two people hearing each other. There's a parental authority there, but there's the two people hearing each other and say, I care enough to listen, even to your unhealthily experienced feelings. Catch that. I care enough to listen to your unhealthily expressed feelings. We're about correcting them at another time. Sooner than you think, probably, but I'll let you have this moment to feel heard. Remember, there's a time to listen. And there's a time to correct. Often, listen first, then correct later. It can change the power of relationships. Moving forward, as Jason often says, you may not be the problem itself, but you can be part of the solution. And if you have any other questions, any other ideas, topics that you want to be a part of the next podcast, feel free to let me know. Reach out to me on my website, lambertsfisher.com. And hopefully you can improve your relationships with your teens. Teens, you can improve your relationships with your parents. Look for them trying to teach something. Look for them trying to model. Feel heard and give hearing back in return. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Teen Whisperer podcast with Jason Clopton, known to his clients as JC the Counselor. Check back every Tuesday for new episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. Find out more and connect with Jason at ShelettaMakesMeLaugh.com.
Listen, I know how hard it is for some of us to make this decision, but if you haven't been vaccinated yet, now is the time. This Omicron variant, y'all, it ain't no joke. The only way to protect you and your family is to get the vaccine. If you're on the fence and haven't yet, I understand. I didn't get the shot at first either, because as a Black woman, I just didn't trust the healthcare system. But I did it afraid, because I didn't want to get COVID-19 and die, then leave my 4 kids without their mama. So here's what I need you to do. Call your doctor or pharmacy and make an appointment to get this shot. The state of Minnesota and Ramsey County have free clinics that offer the vaccine. You can find one near your house by going to their website at ramseycounty.us/COVID vaccine. Or simply call 651-266-1190. Do it for yourself. Do it for your family. Do it for your community.
I'm Melissa with The Greenery Minneapolis, and we are a plant shop in Mercantile. We primarily work with houseplants and houseplant accompaniments. I'm incredibly grateful to be a RISE recipient. It came at exactly the right time. I was needing the buffer income to be able to execute my vision. And the grant has allowed us the capabilities to bulk up our inventory and to be able to catch up on some of the things that we might have gotten behind on, just in the transition from moving from one space to the next. And this is really giving us the leverage and the resources to continue to move forward.